Hello, this is the news on NTA International. I am Stella Inameti, and my sign language interpreter is Josiah Abdullahi. First, the headlines. Nigeria and Chad agree on joint responsibility to combat terrorism and banditry at their confluence areas. President Tinubu visits Jos, reassures federal government security in a bid to stem the tide of recurring killings and bloodletting on the plateau. Plus, UN Chief Antonio Guterres warns of wider war as Middle East conflict enters second month. Thanks for joining us. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has reassured the people of Plateau State of the federal government's security in a bid to stem the tide of recurring killings and bloodletting on the plateau. The president is visiting Jos to commiserate with the people following recent attacks which he describes as barbaric. He had the soothing words for the victims.
This experience will not repeat itself. I take, for example, Favor Roda. I know the pain. I see how on the video you head on to Abuja and the pain and agony in your heart. But it's only God. It's only God who can give you joy and comfort. No amount of money can pay all of you back. Yes, as government, we will try our best to comfort you, to work with you.
To the leaders of Plateau, he urged them to see themselves as people in service to humanity.
Why is the past not a source of lesson for us? I've listened to Jan. I've listened to Washington. I've listened to Nachawu. I've listened to the governor. Governor, you and I were elected on a promise of peace and prosperity, not to comfort and create widows and widowers.
Details of the president's visit will come in subsequent bulletins. In a decisive move to contain the security situation in parts of Plateau State, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waidi Shuaibu, has directed the immediate deployment of additional troops to strengthen ongoing operations under Operation Enduring Peace. In a statement, the Acting Director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Apollonia Anele, says the reinforcement is aimed at supporting troops on ground to de-escalate threats and restoring law and order across affected areas while addressing troops at the Headquarters Joint Task Force Operation Enduring Peace in Jos. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waidi Shuaibu, charged troops to remain professional and disciplined in dealing with criminal elements threatening the peace and security. Nigeria and Chad have agreed on joint responsibility to combat terrorism and banditry at their confluence areas. President Bola Tinubu and his Chadian counterpart, Mohamed Debi, announced this resolve after their meeting in Abuja.
The two countries is a borderless resolve to combat terrorism and fight them, eliminate all acts of terror to our people, and ensure we maintain the sovereignty of our two nations. We have agreed on joint responsibility. We've come a long way. What we have inherited from our forebears is to ensure peace and stability for development of our region, to ensure that our people can trade, commerce, and move in resolve in one uniform. A tiny geographical separation and the language is not a barrier. It's an opportunity to fight terrorism and develop our people for prosperity now and for the future.
In other developments, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Ekperikpe Ekpo, has called for stronger regional collaboration amongst African nations to unlock the continent's vast natural gas potential and address persistent energy deficits. This comes as Nigeria pushes for integrated gas market cross-border projects at Roundtable in Abuja. Lydia Sampson reports.
Ministerial Roundtable on Regional Gas Development and Cooperation in Africa held in Abuja attracted participants from the World Bank. Ekperikpe Ekpo reiterates that Africa's energy future hinges not only on the abundance of its resources, but on collective action and coordinated strategies.
You can agree with me that Africa's energy future will not be determined by abundance of resources, but by our ability to act together. We hold over 600 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas reserves.
For the ministers, development partners and stakeholders, leveraging resource availability with coordination, infrastructure and collective action is sacrosanct. The coordinating director of the Decade of Gas Secretariat, Ed Ubong, identified gas to power and the expansion of domestic liquefied petroleum gas usage as two priority areas, stressing that the gas to power initiative is aimed at improving electricity supply, while increased LPG adoption seeks to replace firewood and charcoal, improve public health and environmental sustainability.
There's a lot of excitement. We have seen clear results. Nigeria's gas production is going up. What the minister said this year at the first Decade of Gas meeting was that this trajectory must continue.
Stakeholders, some drawn from outside Nigeria, emphasize that despite the enormous gas reserves in the continent, no single country can unlock this potential alone, underscoring regional cooperation as the cornerstone of sustainable development. Participants also emphasized the need to expand gas to power and clean cooking initiatives to ensure that gas development translates into tangible benefits such as reliable electricity and improved living standards for citizens. For these key players, the importance of harmonizing policy and regulatory framework across countries to reduce investment risks and accelerate project delivery, leveraging Nigeria's Petroleum Industry Act as a useful reference model is key, as Nigeria reaffirms readiness to collaborate, invest, and provide leadership where necessary in building an integrated African gas market. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
Nigeria's Sovereign Wealth Fund is posting record-breaking results for 2026, with total assets rising to $3.4 billion and comprehensive income hitting its highest level since inception. Musa Abubakar reports that the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority also delivered strong returns, outperforming projections on both assets and equity, underscoring improved efficiency and robust portfolio growth.
In a time of economic uncertainty, Nigeria's Sovereign Wealth Fund is carving out a story of quiet strength and steady growth. At its 2025 earnings presentation, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority revealed a performance that speaks not just in numbers, but in strategy.
We are working very closely with the World Bank to try to establish a platform that allows us to finance large-scale infrastructure projects across transmission, across generation.
Core operating income rose to $349.1 million, showing consistency. But it is the surge in total comprehensive income up to 478.8 billion naira, the highest in its history, that signals something deeper, momentum.
Expanded portfolio of climate investments. So where climate and green investments is concerned, we are putting our money where our mouth is.
Behind that momentum is efficiency. Return on assets climbed to 9.9%, while return on equity reached 10.5%, both beating expectations and reflecting sharper capital deployment. But beyond the balance sheet, the NSIA is positioning itself as a stabilizer in uncertain times. In Abuja, Musa Abubakar, NT News.
Nigeria has achieved a major milestone in its campaign against child malnutrition with the launch of a trust fund to drive and ensure the sustainability of the National Community Food Bank program. At a ceremony held at the conference center of the Presidential Villa, Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu also inaugurated a board of trustees for the fund. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports.
United by a common cause, they gathered here at the conference center of the Presidential Villa. Their resolve strong against child malnutrition, an enemy many Nigerian children know too well. Nigeria's First Lady and the mother of the nation, Oluremi Tinubu, leads the coalition that gave birth to the National Community Food Bank program as a system-wide coordinated national response that seeks to provide children access to quality and nutritious food. And this ceremony, the inauguration of the Board of Trustees and fundraising for the Community Food Bank project, is to ensure that adequate resources are not only harnessed but well managed to sustain the program.
Our goal is to build a strong and effective food bank system in Nigeria that is supported through a well-structured trust fund, governed transparently and capable of reaching communities and households across the country. Members of the Board of Trustees of the Community Food Bank Trust Fund are distinguished individuals with wealth of experience, integrity, and deep commitment to public service. They will provide the strategic leadership and oversight needed to ensure that this trust fund is governed with transparency, efficiency, and accountability.
Inaugurating the board, the First Lady says ending hunger among children in the grassroots is not a charity, but a strategic intervention that must be nurtured by a collective will.
I appeal to many more well-meaning Nigerians, organizations and institutions to join this national effort, as the program will be taken across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country.
The fight against hunger cannot be left to government alone. It requires the national partnership and the national ownership which you are seeing. Your contributions will help strengthen nutrition, improve health outcomes, and bring hope to vulnerable Nigerians across our country.
Beyond institutional frameworks, there is also a role for household resilience. Efforts that encourage home-based food production, however small, reminds us that national systems are strongest when they are complemented by local action.
Aliko Dangote Foundation will commit 20
Then
billion
came pledges,
naira
commitment and donations from the subnationals, development partners, and corporate organizations.
The NGF stands ready to work closely with the federal government, the Office of the First Lady, and all relevant partners to ensure effective implementation. So we present a counterpart fund that will closely align to what the federal government is donating.
Let us all, as stakeholders, resolve to support strengthen and sustain these initiatives. Only through our collective effort that we can ensure that the fund impact reaches every corner of our great nation.
Led by the First Lady as the chairman, the 6-member board of trustees include the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Muhammad Ali Pati, Managing Director of Bank of Agriculture, Ayodeji Shotirin, former Finance Minister, Dr. Mukhtar Mansour, Dr. Muyaino, the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and Honorable Wahab Alawiye King. From the conference center of the Presidential Villa, Adeniyi Taiwo, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We'll take a break now. More reports when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying. UN Chief Antonio Guterres has warned that the Middle East conflict risked spiraling into a wider war as he canvassed an immediate halt to U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran and Iranian attacks on its neighbors. Antonio Guterres made the assertion in New York. He is of the view that the globe is on the edge of a wider war capable of engulfing the Middle East with dramatic impacts around the globe.
Every day, this war continues, human suffering grows, the scale of devastation grows, indiscriminate attacks grow, the target of civilians and civilian infrastructure grows, and the perils to our world grow. We are on the edge of a wider war that would engulf the whole Middle East with dramatic impacts around the globe. The conflict is already being felt.
Following recent France election, the Pacific Ocean archipelago of New Caledonia, French territory, has triggered fears among parties opposed to independence of the territory, strengthening their grip on the capital and surrounding region. The second round results consolidated their dominance in the most populous center of the overseas territory, which has been politically polarized for years between pro- and non-independence parties. This year's local elections were the first since deadly separatist violence broke out in New Caledonia in May 2024. In the capital, Niamey, incumbent Mayor Sonia Lagarde aligned with the main non-independence bloc to win a decisive victory with 62% of the vote, securing 43 council seats. Turnout was 48%. Both camps are looking to use the election results to bolster their positions as France's parliament prepares to examine a constitutional reform that aims to have New Caledonia remain French but be declared a new state. Pope Leo XIV led the Chrism Mass on Thursday in St. Peter's Basilica, calling on priests to renew their mission that calls for unity and brings peace. Austin Ayibe reports.
In his homily, the Pope encouraged bishops and priests to go where they are sent with simplicity. The Pope also reminded members of the Church that no good can come from abuse of power and invited them to work together. Pope Leo is preparing to celebrate Easter for the first time as pontiff, a year after his predecessor's death, as concerns grow among Christians over the Middle East war. Holy Week began with a clash in the Holy Land as the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Italian Cardinal Battista Pizzaballa, was denied entry to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem by Israeli authorities in what he called a first in centuries. On Tuesday, Leo said he hoped that U.S. President Donald Trump was looking for an off-ramp to end the war. Against this tense backdrop, Rome is preparing to welcome thousands of worshippers for the Easter celebration, the most important feast in a Christian calendar, which commemorates the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Among Catholics, the memory of the late Pope Francis will loom large. Last year, Holy Week was the setting for the Argentine pontiff's final public appearances, during which he appeared frail and short of breath. He died on Easter Monday following a final tour around St. Peter's Square in his Pope mobile to greet the crowd. Leo was chosen as his successor on May 8th. The 70-year-old US-born Pope has so far shown diplomatic caution and has not directly condemned his home country's role in the turbulent Middle East region. The basilica was filled with priests from the Diocese of Rome. Austin Anyebe, NT News.
An explosion has rocked a military ammunition depot in Bujumbura, a city in Burundi, leaving 13 dead and over 50 injured. Burundi Army spokesperson Gaspard Baratuza told a news conference on Wednesday that houses, buildings, vehicles and military equipment were destroyed in the explosion. The military spokesman explained that the impact from the explosion, according to comments from residents, prompted terrified residents to seek shelter in Bujumbura. Preliminary report has it that the explosion was caused by an electrical short circuit on a Burundian military base by night. A Bujumbura resident who lives nearby said the explosions lasted several hours. The fourth defendant in the alleged terrorism act following attack on a Catholic church, Jamiu Abdul Malik, has denied knowledge of any fundamental rights suit filed by his lawyer while in the DSS custody. This was during cross-examination by the DSS prosecution. Judiciary correspondent Austin Anyebe reports.
Jamiu Abdul Malik, the third defendant in the ongoing 2022 Our Church massacre trial, has denied any knowledge of a fundamental human rights suit filed on his behalf by their lawyer Abdullahi Mohammed. The claim emerged during cross-examination by counsel representing the Department of State Services at the Federal High Court, where the defendant insisted that he was unaware of legal action taken in his name. When the prosecutor and senior advocate of Nigeria, Ayodeji Adedeji, presented the fundamental rights suit filed in December 2024, as evidence, Abdul Malik confirmed his name appeared as applicant number 3, yet he maintained that he has never been informed about the filing. He insisted that no one approached him in 2022 regarding the case, thereby contradicting statements in the affidavit. The defendant maintained that his testimony reflects only his personal knowledge. The court, however, admitted the fundamental rights suit as exhibits. The fourth defense witness chronicled his arrest and alleged ordeals in custody, denying the attack on our Catholic Church, saying he was a student of Islamic school in Hima, Kogi State, when he was arrested. Cross-examining him, the prosecution sought to know his relationship with the second defendant, Al-Qasim. He said Al-Qasim is a friend to his brother. The prosecution frowned at his statement that he did not see any of his relatives for 3 years, but he said it was almost 3 years. From the Federal High Court, Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NT News.
And still from the judiciary, a federal high court sitting in Abuja has dismissed Omoyele Showore's fundamental rights enforcement suit against the Department of State Services, its Director General and Meta Platforms Incorporated. Justice Mohammed Umar, in his judgment, resolved the 3 issues identified for determination against Showore and declined to grant any of the relief sought and proceeded to dismiss the suit for being without merit. Showore had claimed in the suit that the decision by Meta Incorporated, allegedly acting on the instruction of the DSS and its DG, took down a post he made about President Bola Tinubu and deactivated his Facebook account. Up next is the weather outlook. And that's the news on NTA International. I am Stella Inamiti, a sign language interpreter, Josiah Abdullahi. Thanks for watching.